Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome as well. So today I wanted to share with you guys the books that I read this past month of January and the books I want to read on this month of February. So before we begin, just a quick explanation why I don't have the physical books here with me. I usually borrow the audiobooks and the ebooks on the library or just buy them and read it on my Kindle. So it's not uncommon for me to not have the physical book. I only buy the books that I really vibe. Some accidents may happen, but yeah. The books that I buy usually are the ones that I already read, or I'm reading the ebook and I really want the physical copy of the book. I was not like this before, but I really like to take notes and put on some tags on the books so I can have like a piece of me while reading the book and the book forever. Kind of like a picture that you see the past. I like to see myself in the past through my notes on the books. Some of the books that I read this January, I will buy the physical copies and write down the comments, but I don't have them with me yet. Okay, so this past month I read 4 books, okay, and I kind of reread one manga. Let's talk about the manga first, just because it's just one title. So I was rereading A Sign of Affection. This manga tells us the story about Yuki, this deaf girl that wants to expand her world because she grew up in the same school with the same people around her, because her world is just a little bubble and she wants to go to new places, meet new people, have new experience. And the other character, the love interest, is this boy, a multilingual boy that has traveled to a lot of places. This manga is so sweet. It's like the cutest romance you could ever read. I was having this thought after recording my previous video. Do romance books feel the same as shoujo romance? Because I really love shoujo romance. I think it's the only way for me to read romance. I've never felt like reading a romance book, but I'm kind of curious now. Maybe I should do this experiment of comparing romance books and romance in manga and see how the different media deal with the genre. There's this inexplicable connection between Yuki and Itsuomi, and I decided to reread the manga just because the anime is airing right now in the winter season and I want to have my memory fresh so I could appreciate all the details of the different medias. For now, the anime? Perfect. Okay, so let's start with the series that started my year. This is kind of an interesting experience. So I started this year reading and then listening to the audiobook of The Kinder Poison by Natalie May. I had to change to the audiobook because I couldn't stand reading that book anymore. That book was way too long, almost 400 pages. The characters were all over the place, the plot was confusing, and it's not like Natalie didn't build a world full of rules. She actually did the opposite of that. She put too many rules. All the time the characters were reminding themselves about something new, an aspect of how the world works. I know it's explained to us, but it doesn't make sense for them to forget something important, like when a person turns 60, they lose their powers. If you have powers, magical powers, and you live in this world where when you're 60, you start to lose your powers, how could you forget that? The main character, Zaru, she's basically a boring mobile otome game character. I know it's very specific, but it's the perfect description. The world Natalie May writes for us, it really feels like a make it as you go kind of world building and magic system. I was already in 37% of the ebook and I was still being informed by the characters about new rules and how the magic works. Like, I'm almost halfway through the book. I don't want new information. I don't need new information. And it was not like Natalie was showing us and then we understood the world. The characters were thinking or talking to each other about the rules. Why would they do that? And some unnecessary rules. For example, so the person has the magical power to heal people. Every time they heal someone, they lose a part of their lifespan. Why? Why this new rule? Even later on in the second book, I don't see a need, an explanation to why that rule is important. It has no consequence. We don't see that. I feel like a lot of these magic system rules and the world building rules, they were added just to add drama, but we don't see the drama. I was sold an adventure in the desert involving magic powers, a high-stake adventure because of some human sacrifice, enemies to lovers, and a corruption arc of a female character. Those were the topics that sold me in this book. I found none. Do you know that sound and action we do when something is boring or is just annoying to us? Kind of like, all the time I was rolling my eyes and doing that sign. The characters, they could have been so much more. The interesting topic between the two brothers, so Jet and Costa, it was there, but not that well explored. Costa is the most interesting character, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was the first character that Natalie came up with in this story. So the plot here. Just to summarize, no spoilers. Because of a misunderstanding in this party that Zaru went just to have some chocolate and have some fun, she ends up being chosen as a human sacrifice for this crossing race tradition between three royal siblings. The sibling that would run the race would turn to be the new maestra, so the new king in this world. So it's kind of a race in the desert to see who would sacrifice Zaru first. It is an interesting setting because you would think the siblings would go like stealing Zaru from each other, like she was just an object. But actually, we just see her start with one sibling, then go to the other and go to the other. So we learn more about them. Zaru ends up being their counselor. She should have charged for the counseling sessions. There's a lot of plot holes in this magic system and how the race works. So no, I did not enjoy the first book, but I'm curious to see how this is going to end. And the ending was not satisfying. Still, I wanted to see if there's any improvement in the second book, so I kept listening to it. No, I wouldn't read it. I wouldn't commit the same mistake again. And basically, the story that I was sold in the first book, I finally have it in the second. The first book is basically to have a setting for the next one. So all of that, enemies to lovers, female corruption arc, adventure, action, magic, all of that we see way more in the second book. So it's not like the second book is the greatest thing, the greatest adventure I've ever read, but it's way better to the first one in comparison. I really feel like this is the story Natalie wanted to tell us, but she needed time for us to learn about the characters, learn about the world, and learn the magic system. We didn't need 400 pages for that. I really feel like the first book could have been chapters added to the second book. Okay, so in the second book, Zaru, she ends up in the situation where she and Costa have to work together, but they didn't have a good relationship during the crossing race. The other love interest option, so Jet, the second prince, he's there. His character kind of changed between the first book and the second book. I liked him way more in the first book. I don't know what happened to him. Zaru and Jet, they tried to fix their relationship because some things had happened. The main point of the second book is that Zaru, she starts to get paranoid about Costa hidden plans. This is all I can say because this is a spoiler-free video. But yeah, in this book we see way more the struggle between Zaru and Costa in their relationship in personal level and in power hierarchy, because they need to work together to organize the kingdom as the Maestra is sick and about to die. A lot of parts in the second book were kind of predictable, except for the ending. The ending on the second book is something that I wasn't prepared for. The power struggle here, that one scene between Zaru and Costa, it's so well done that I wish Natalie could have written us more in that style. You really don't know who is going to win to the very end of the book. If you had told me before I start the second book that I would hate the first but I would enjoy kind of the third so far, I wouldn't have believed you. I'm starting to read the third book I borrowed from the library, and so far so good. I'm like just 10% in, but honestly 10% in the first book, and I was already sensing I would enjoy this book. But it's really interesting to notice how Natalie develops her writing style and how she makes the characters interact with each other. Because the first book, a lot of unnecessary comments and a lot of unnecessary scenes. The second book, way better, but maybe too focused on Zaru and Costa, so basically two characters. One other character doesn't even appear in the second book. She really was just an extra character. So let's see how the third book ends and if there's a redemption arc to this series. I can't believe I just deleted the audio file for this section of the video and I have to re-record. Okay, so the next book that I read this past month is The People We Keep. I was looking for found family trope books because of this one anime, The Four Sons of the Yuzuki Family, if I'm not mistaken. This anime has a cozy family vibe and I wanted something similar but in book. And by the synopsis, I thought this would be it, but instead this book took me to places and memories that I wasn't prepared for, honestly. So we follow this girl named April. She's just a 16-year-old girl that runs from her father. He basically abandoned her in this motorhome. Her mother was the first to abandon her when she was 5-6 years old. And with no family and parents caring for her, April starts her road journey and meets some interesting people along her way. And that's what the book's about, the people we keep, but also the people that we meet in our life. And that was the thing that I wasn't expecting. I think we can see ourselves so easily in this book, but not because we went through the same situations, but because we met similar people in our life. So, the friend by occasion, the friend by interest, the friends by shared moments, those who should have stayed but didn't, those who could have stayed but didn't care enough, and finally, those who stayed despite everything. I got reminded of this one phrase while reading this book, and in a free translation it kind of goes like, the best you could give someone is give yourself. And I got reminded of this phrase because this book is a great reminder to be kind towards ourselves and toward others. I feel this book gives us opportunity to do a humanity check and see ourselves in others. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I laughed, I felt the drama, I cried, I became desperate. This book was filled with emotion that I wasn't expecting. So this was a great surprise for me, honestly. I just wanted some cozy found family trope and I got a reflection in life. So the next book is in my TBR list for ages now and is The Dutch House. It was in my TBR list, but I have kind of forgotten about it until I found that the audiobook was narrated by Tom Hanks. How could I say no to Mr. Tom Hanks? So yeah, I borrowed the audiobook and I wasn't expecting that. And it was again a great surprise. This book was not a roller coaster of emotions as The People We Keep, but they have similar themes, not in found family, but on the theme of the people that we have in our lives, the people that can transform our lives to the better or worse. And the thought that even though we don't want other people to have that much power in affecting our lives and our decisions, how we perceive ourselves, it's inevitable. So I got lucky on finding 2 books with similar themes that work that theme perfectly. I need to say that this book caught me in the right moment, I think. So we follow the story of these 2 siblings, Danny and Maeve, and they grew up in this exceptional, beautiful, exotic house that they called the Dutch house because the previous owners were Dutch. And that's it. That's the story of the title. And they grew up in a very easy and comfortable life because their father, he managed to build a real estate empire kind of from the zero. So they grew up rich, but Destiny didn't want that for them. And later on, they lose everything and end up alone. Just the 2 of them. The story goes back and forth in the timeline, so sometimes we are in the present that is actually the future because we follow Danny's point of view. Danny is in the present and he starts to recollect something from his past. We go back in the timeline and start the story from there. There were a lot of cuts in the timeline, but nothing really confusing. We get to know more about Danny and Maeve throughout these cuts in the timeline, gather the pieces and we put them together in our heads. The family is totally dysfunctional, except for Danny and Maeve. Maeve is the best character in this book, starting from chapter 1. She's great, she's amazing. Maeve would be the person that you want to have in your life so you can lean on them. She's a strong character, resolute, independent, the person that you know you can return to. That's the safe feeling I have with Maeve. So she's really important, she's a very impactful character, and is basically the mother figure for our protagonist, Danny. I say protagonist just because we see his point of view, but honestly they are both protagonists. Danny is just a sweet boy. He's very positive towards life. It's kind of cute. They're kind of opposite to each other, but they work so well together. We can really see how their relationship is special and is different. Danny and Maeve can only be themselves when they are together. They know they can share their thoughts, they can feel safe with each other, they share secrets. It's such a beautiful relationship. I feel it's the kind of relationship we all need in our lives. So there's one person that we can rely on, that we can share our thoughts and be vulnerable in front of this one person without the fear of being judged. I cried a lot, I got angry, I felt like I was the one being wronged. I cried again and felt peace in the end. The ending to this book, it's not like the ending was just satisfying, but honestly I don't think it could have been better. Again, a great surprise. And I really recommend the audiobook. Mr. Tom Hanks, he does a perfect job. Oh yeah, so before ending the video, I want to share with you guys the books that I want to read this February. Hopefully I can manage to read all of them. I read all of the synopsis, but honestly I don't remember half of it. So my list goes as: the first one is Infinite Alchemists, and this one is the first in a potential book series, so let's see how this goes. I already have this on hold on the library app, so I'll be starting this one soon. These Deadly Prophecies, The Fox Wife. This one, I'm not really expecting much from this one, but the cover is pretty. Heartless Hunter, again, the first book in a book series. A Tempest of Tea, and this one sounds interesting, so I'm expecting a lot from it. Maybe I shouldn't, so I wouldn't be disappointed. Lore of the Wild, that is a YA fantasy involving fae. I want to finish the Kinder Poison series, so I'll be reading The Sweetest Betrayal, the third and final book on the series. And I just started to listen to This Violent Delights in audiobook, so it's interesting. It's getting interesting. It's kind of Romeo and Juliet vibe, and then I'm loving it. But Romeo and Juliet, very enemies before lovers. I'm enjoying this very much, especially when I'm doing my crochet. I feel all this magical and thriller vibe while doing my crochet. So this is interesting, this is fun. The concept of listening to thriller books while doing crochet so you can use the crochet hook to stab. Okay guys, so that's all I have for you today. Do you have any other recommendations for me? Please leave on the comments below. Have you read any of the books that I read this past January? What did you find of them? Please let me know. I want to see if I'm the only one that got impacted by these books. Anyway, I hope you liked this video. I'll just take my leave and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!